Hello again! This is my second video that I'm putting up on the channel, which is called Constantly Summer. In the first video, I talked about foundations that are either mattifying or specifically good for oily combination skin. So I thought what would be good for a second video, and it kind of went hand in hand with that. And so I am going to do a routine, kind of how you daily put on your liquid foundation, and that includes using primer, your foundation, and a setting powder. Those are kind of the main steps that I'm going to go over. I know it may seem like a lot, but it really does make a difference in how your foundation will look and how your foundation will last. And once you get into the swing of it, it really doesn't take that long. So, let's get started.
There we go. Say hello to my naked face, get friendly with yours, and then say goodbye because we're about to cover it with foundation. Step 1, we are going to prime. Priming is your best friend. It'll help everything stay in place. I'm using the Rimmel Matet today. And you're going to see I'm just going to use a small pea-sized amount. You don't want to use too much primer because that can actually clump up your foundation and make it not dispense evenly across your face. I'm just going to pat it in, really focus on the T-zone areas for me because that's where I get oily, and then you can rub it out onto the rest of your face. Once you do that, if you feel like you need a little bit more primer, by all means go ahead and add more, but less is more in this instance because you don't want it to mess up your foundation. You want it to do its job and keep it in place. Now you can get a mattifying primer, a luminescent primer, pick the primer for your needs. There's a lot of really good high-end ones. I haven't found necessarily one that I'm in love with though that's drugstore, but I do like the matte, and I also like some NYX. NYX has some good ones as well. Step 2, we are going to actually use our foundation. I'm going to be using the L'Oreal ProMatte Infallible with a really long name. And what I like to do is I will squeeze the product onto the back of my hand, and then I will take my damp beauty blender, there we go, and I don't like to use the dot technique, which is when you kind of take your foundation and then dot it all over your face. I do a bit of a hybrid where I will put it onto the back of my beauty blender, or my Real Techniques blender in this case, and then I will dot a small portion of my face and then I'll blend that in. The reason I like to do that instead of dotting my whole face with makeup is that the longer your makeup is out, the drier it's going to be. And what I found is that if I dot my whole face, then I'll get to some patches of makeup that have already started to dry out, which makes it a lot harder to blend out. So I like to dot and blend and then switch areas and then dot and blend again. And I'll just do that all over my face. Now a beauty blender does take, I don't want to say it takes forever, but it does take more time than using a brush. If you want to use a brush, I may do another video on that. But the reason I do like using a beauty blender is because I think it gives the most natural airbrushed finish, which I'm a big fan of. One thing to note with a beauty blender is there is a big difference between using a damp one and a completely dry one. A damp one is going to blend your makeup out better, pardon the funny faces. So a damp one is going to blend your makeup out better, but it is also going to sheer it out a little bit more. And a dry one, it is not going to blend your makeup out as well, but you will get a bit more coverage with it. Bear in mind that you can always build up your makeup using a damp beauty blender, so I don't think that should deter you, and I do recommend using it as a damp instead of a dry. It just looks better. And as you can see on screen, I am beating my face or attacking my face or whatever it looks like. It kind of looks like I'm attacking it. But you want to use your beauty blender. You want to bounce it off your skin, kind of how you see me doing it. Just a lot of really tiny up and down beats. You don't want to smear it. You can smear it all over your face, but it's not going to give you as much of an airbrushed, beautiful look, and it'll probably be a lot more uneven as well. Just like my camera right now as I disappear and focus. on the ribbon on my head. One quick note while we're looking at the bow on top of my head is to dampen your beauty blender. You want to run it under the sink. Give it at least like a minute. Remember that it is a sponge, so you want to give it a couple seconds to actually be able to absorb the water. And then once it absorbs the water, squeeze all the water out of it that you can, and you will have the perfect damp beauty blender to beautifully blend your makeup. You don't have to be as obsessive as I am in this video, and normally it does not take me this long, but I got nervous being on camera. Okay, take a deep breath. Check out your foundation, make sure it is even and you have a solid base. Now we are going to move on, and we are going to use concealer. Now, I know highlighting under the eye is very popular with concealer right now, but we are using concealer in the traditional sense, as in to cover up imperfections, pimples, all those fun things. I'm using the Sephora one. It is like, I would say, a medium coverage. I would like something a little bit higher coverage, but I still want to play around with this formula a little bit. I'm dabbing my face quite gently, just as I dabbed the camera. And I know it looks like this shade is too light for me. I kind of got slightly tan for me, so my foundation looks a little bit lighter than a true match to my skin. Also, the camera is magnifying kind of the difference between my foundation and natural skin tone. And then thirdly, I have a lot of red in my face, so I don't want a foundation that is going to have that much red in it. So I actually pick a foundation that's going to kind of counterbalance that. Now you see that I switched out the Beauty Blender for a little makeup brush. The reason being the Beauty Blender I found was shearing out the coverage of the concealer too much. So I switched it up for a brush, which will give me a higher coverage. And now I'm going to think about what step we're at, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. And we are going to now use concealer in a different way. I'm going to be using the Tarte Shape Tape, which is really popular right now. I love this stuff. It's super, super high coverage, but it smells so amazing. It smells like flowers, and I just stuck it up my nose. Smelling it, so now we're going to have a strange under the nose highlight. Now, I am going to dot this. This is super high coverage, like I said, so I'm going to use it very sparingly. And you can see I'm doing a bit of a triangle under my eye and also a bit of a rim on the outside of my eye, kind of up to my eyebrow almost. And what this does is it adds a natural highlight that is just going to be a bit of prominence to that feature as well and make it pop. Down the nose and on the forehead and chin as well. We're just adding back kind of a natural highlight. And also, I mean, who doesn't want to look this cool? Bear in mind, I would recommend, depending on the concealer that you use, to blend it out very quickly once you apply it. You don't even necessarily need to do it how I did it, where you apply it all at once and then blend it out. When I'm doing it off camera and it doesn't matter and I'm not showing anyone what I'm doing, I'll do under one eye, blend it out, under the other eye, and blend it out. Because it's the same principle with your concealer, or with your foundation, sorry. The longer you have it on the face and don't blend it out, the drier it's going to be and the harder it is going to be to blend it out. This concealer in particular is harder to blend. It does dry down pretty quickly, but I love the formula, so I think it's definitely worth it. So I am going to switch us over to the other side of my face where I am finishing out under that eye. And as you can start to see, it's very subtle, but there's a slight difference where you can see a bit of highlight under the eye and on my forehead. Now, the reason we're doing this isn't just to eliminate bags or circles under your eye. You're also doing it to bring back some of the natural highlight. Think of it this way. When you put on foundation, you're covering up all of your skin. What you're also covering up is the natural highlight that you have, because over time, the sun hits your face at different angles, so you have different, variations of light and dark on your face just from that. So bringing in some light back under the eyes and on the nose and forehead, while it's giving prominence to these areas, it's also giving more depth, and I'm using really big quotes on this, a more natural look. But essentially, we are bringing some dimension back into the face, so we're not just all one wash of color. It's the same principle that goes into contouring and using a bronzer, but I normally will just do this and skip a bronzer and contour. And there we go. We are done. You can see a subtle difference. I should do a before and after picture so you can really tell, because it's hard to see or tell a difference until you kind of have pictures next to each other. So now we are going to set our under eye concealer with a setting powder. This one is the Besame Violet Lavender one. So you're going to put some product in your cap, swirl it around, tap the excess off like you just saw I did, and then you are going to pat it in, and pat kind of in the same way that you used your beauty blender, because you don't want to smear around your foundation, you just want to pat the powder into it so that it'll properly set it. The reason that I like to use the violet one personally for me is, one, violet is known as kind of a brightening, and then additionally it helps auto correct a little bit yellow and pinky red tones. So I like to use it for that. Sometimes concealer can pull a little bit yellow on me once it's been on my face for a while. So I really like it for that. Obviously, it's not going to look purple on my face. I wouldn't use that. It's just a very, very subtle difference. And now I am going in on the forehead, nose, and chin with the same powder. I like the brightening effect, and since I am highlighting those areas, I'm going to do so with the powder as well. So now that we've set under the eye, we are going to set the rest of our face with our giant fluffy brush that perpetually has cat hair in it for me. And I am going to be using the Laura Mercier setting powder today. Make sure you use a setting powder. There are a bunch of powders out there, and there actually is a difference. So I'm going to show you, you are going to tap product into the top of it, swirl your brush around, and then tap off the excess powder. And then I am going to use the exact same technique we used for under the eye, where I am patting the powder into my face. Now, what this does is it is going to set our liquid products. It's exactly why we did it for our concealer that was under the eyes. Powder locks in the moisture and it keeps your foundation from moving around. Now, if you are worried about looking super, super powdery once you're done with this, setting spray will melt the powder back down into your face, as weird as that sounds. So your face will look less powdery once you use a setting spray. Once I've patted it in, I will very, very gently swirl my brush over my face as you see me doing now, just to make sure that I got every little spot and detail, and then your face is set with powder. I'm going to go ahead and put on the rest of my makeup now. I'm not going to contour as far as with a bronzer or like a darker gray color to cut the cheeks. I'll put on some blush and highlighter, but that's about all I do for a daily basis. Sorry, I'm getting eyeliner, and that's why you see the bow again. So that is it. Once I put on the rest of my makeup, I will then use a setting spray. So I am going to cut off the tutorial here. I'm not going to show me doing my eyeliner or anything.
Thank you so much for stopping by and sticking through. For more videos, please subscribe. I'm going to be coming out with a lot more stuff. I have some cool, fun, creative ideas as well. And I've started an Instagram account. I'm doing the 100 Days of Makeup Challenge, which will be a challenge, but I think a fun one. And coming soon will be eyeshadow tutorials, but I'm waiting to get a camera where I can zoom in a little bit more and get some higher resolution. So hopefully see you guys soon in the future, and thank you so much for stopping by. Have a good night, day, wherever you are. Bye.